Alright everybody, so on my last tutorial we recorded a small clip that we're going to then take it into Blender and put a spaceship. I just filmed my street out of my balcony and we're gonna take that footage into Blender and put a spaceship on it. Just to very quickly explain to you guys what we're going to be doing. So this is Blender version 2.9, this is the latest version. I'm just gonna open up a motion tracking workspace. You guys don't need to worry about what I'm doing. There will be in-depth explanations of every single process that I'm doing throughout this tutorial. I'm just going to briefly show how camera tracking actually works. I touched on it, but I think it's cool if you guys can see it in action. If I'm on this tab here, if I click on open, I can load a video. For that to work, I need to set Blender up over here on output properties. On this panel here, click on output properties, and I'm gonna choose 23.98 frames per second here on the frame rate because that's the frame rate my camera shot at. So if I click on this button here called open and I need to set the frame rate correctly, I click on open and I can come over, just navigate to my folder. You see I've recorded this tutorial in Portuguese already, but this is the English version. Footage, I'm gonna click on this and hit open clip. The two things I'm going to do is I'm going to click set scene frames, and if you keep your eye on this and value right here, this is start. The first frame is frame number 1 and the last frame, the end frame, is frame 250. Keep your eye on this and value as I click set scene frames. What it does is it basically sets the end value to however many frames your footage has. And I'm gonna click on prefetch, and I want you guys to keep your eyes on this purple bar right here. As I click prefetch, go. See, now it's changed color a little bit, and what that does, I'm just going to reload the clip so that you guys can see. If I have my footage here on Blender, I'm gonna set scene frames and I don't prefetch. The playback is actually going pretty well because I have a pretty good computer. But what you see, it lagged a bit towards the end. When the bar is at this color, it means that the computer has basically taken the video and uploaded it to RAM so that it becomes more responsive. Now I'm gonna look at my footage. I'm gonna come over here all the way to frame 1, and I'm just gonna focus on, I don't know what the hell this is. It looks like chewing gum or something. And I'm just gonna control left click on this. And what that does is creates a marker. So if I come over to this button right here, track selected markers. Sorry, not this button. I always get them mixed up. This one. The little pattern that I made follows the pattern on the sidewalk for a while until it gets kind of lost. But we can, because it moves too far out, we can deal with this kind of stuff later. But here, if I come over to track, I can see a zoomed in view of that point, and you'll see why it's so important that we don't have a lot of motion blur, because then if that point is changing shape a lot, Blender's gonna lose it. Also, if I zoom in here and I press L on my keyboard, now Blender is just zoomed in, fixed. I like to work this way. I don't like to look at this that much, but this is the meat of tracking. If you look at this pattern on the wall right here, I can just click here to lock this track, and then we won't track again. If I come over here and I just click on this and I set to track forward, the shortcut for that, by the way, is Control T. You'll see that it for the most part follows this. This track didn't work. I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna use this. This might be better. Control Shift T tracks backwards. Yeah, that's a pretty good track. Now Control T, see, it tracked all the way. But if you're gonna notice that these tracks have very different movements, and that's what I was talking about. The foreground elements, I have like some here, I have this stuff. The foreground elements move in a different way to the background elements. That is what allows me to extrapolate, to calculate how my camera was moving back in the day. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna open up DaVinci Resolve right here. You guys are gonna be asking me, why are you opening up DaVinci Resolve? I thought this was a Blender tutorial. And you thought, right, this is a Blender tutorial. And this step can actually be done in any software that has an effect called unsharp mask. Unsharp mask is what we're looking for right here, and I'm gonna show you the way it works. But any software, After Effects has it, Premiere probably has it, HitFilm I think has it, probably maybe Avid, Final Cut. It's a very common effect, and what it does, it selectively increases contrast in your image to make it sharper without blowing up the contrast in everything. Just for comparison, I know that this is a webcam footage and it looks like garbage, but this is what the footage looks just with blown out contrast, and this is what the footage looks with unsharp mask, because what it does is it finds the edges in the image and it increases contrast only where it finds those edges. And I'm gonna come right over here to DaVinci Resolve And I'm gonna apologize that I'm blurring this part out because I have some projects here that are work related stuff and I don't want to show that on the internet. But I'm gonna click on create a new project. I actually have one right here that I made when I made this tutorial in Portuguese, so I'm just gonna use that. I'm going to load in my footage like I was on Premiere or any other editing software. I have this clip right here. I'm gonna drag. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete the link clips and remove this. The part of DaVinci Resolve that we're interested in is the Fusion tab. Fusion is going to allow me to add nodes to create effects to my image. Shift spacebar gives me this menu, and I'm just gonna look up unsharp mask and drag it in with shift selected, just sort of place it in here. If you look, if I turn it on and off, you'll see what unsharp mask is doing. It's bringing up some sharpness to my footage by doing that method that I explained. I want 3 variants of this effect. The first one, I'm going to increase the size all the way to 50. I've tested it on other software. On other software, I didn't feel the need, but on DaVinci Resolve, I like to have this gain feature be at 0.5. So what this is doing is bringing up the contrast in the really big details. So if you look like the car window, the wheels and everything like that, I'm just gonna copy paste it, place it over here, and I'm gonna bring my size all the way to 10. Now what this is doing is just bringing the details on the medium-sized points. And I'm just gonna copy paste again, and I'm gonna use a size of 1. I'm gonna use a size of 5. So this is the really small details. You see they jump out the most. Is the size of 1 better? Let me check. Yeah, size of 1's better. So this is what I'm doing. If you look at this, like right here, and you'll be right to say, but Pedro, this original footage right here looked okay. This new footage looks like a pile of garbage. I'm not gonna disagree with you. This isn't meant to look good. This is meant to have as much information. Just look at this stain over here. This is with no unsharp mask. This is with unsharp mask. Now this is very clear and very distinct. Just by comparison, this is what would happen if I just add contrast. This is what would happen. You know, you see that I'm gaining a lot of detail, but I'm also losing a lot of detail. This is why we go the unsharp mask route. What I want to do is just come over here to delivery. This is where I'm gonna find my export options. And on browse, over here on my footage folder, I'm gonna create a new folder called sharp. And I'm gonna select it, and I'm gonna name this file foot or footage. I mean, if you don't want to call it foot, call it hand, I don't care. Sharp, because what I'm doing is sharpening. Very important tip, always put an underline after the name of the footage, because we're actually going to save this footage as a TIFF sequence, okay? All the rest is okay. On Blender, it's not a very good idea to do what I did back in the beginning of this tutorial and actually load a video file. An image sequence just works a lot better. I'm just gonna add this to render queue and start render, and it's done. What we want to do now, while we're here, I'm gonna come over here and disable these nodes by using Ctrl P. I'm disabling these nodes, and now I have my footage as it was, and I'm gonna browse a different location and create another folder called unsharp, which is my original footage that isn't sharpened, and I'm gonna name it accordingly. I'm gonna add it to render queue, and I'm gonna export it, because obviously we're going to need to change the ugly looking footage with the nice looking footage again at some point. So we might as well just create the image sequence right now. So that's it. Now I have this exported out of DaVinci Resolve, and I can import it into Blender so that we can start camera tracking, which is going to be our next tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to take this image with the heightened contrast that we've manipulated in DaVinci Resolve, and we're going to bring it into Blender and extract the camera movement out of it. It's going to be very fun. And of course, if you like this kind of content and you want to see more tutorials like that in the future, please like the video, share the video, subscribe to my channel. I am going to try to make as many tutorials as I can. And if you like, subscribe. That's going to make a huge difference. That's going to help me out a lot.